I'm Tony Shepard, 30 years tracking organized retail crime and working major busts.
And I'm Johnny Custer, 30 years turning loss prevention into a profit-driving powerhouse with analytics and strategy.
Every episode, we break down the latest in retail risk, security, and total loss prevention. What's real, what's hype, and what's coming next.
And yeah, we'll probably have some fun along the way.
Welcome to It's Your Loss with Tony and Johnny. Retail crime, retail loss, the future of loss prevention.
Hey, welcome back. Hey, Tony.
Good afternoon, Johnny. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Time for another episode. This time we've got a legend with us, Mr. Rick Beardsley, the Senior Director of Loss Prevention at Home. Hey, Rick.
How you doing, guys?
We're doing awesome, man. It's great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Wait. Do we have all Texas people on the call this time? Is that accurate? Rick's in Texas.
We do.
Yeah.
First time. All
Yeehaw.
Texans. Look at that.
Johnny and I are less than 2 miles apart, probably.
Oh, that's right. We should have worn our cowboy hats, though. That would have been classic. You know, we missed out on that.
They don't look right on me. It doesn't fit. I've tried to make it work. It just doesn't work. How about you, Rick?
Yeah. The cowboy hats aren't for me, and anything cowboys aren't for me either. So.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Anything cowboy related.
All right. I should have worn my cowboy hat. To heck with you guys then. Fine. Next time.
All right. So listen, we're going to be jumping into the Rick origin story pretty soon here. But if you don't mind, Rick, can you talk a little bit about your current role and how long you've been there?
Yeah, I'm the Senior Director of Loss Prevention and Safety at Home. I've been here for 12 years. When I started, the company was still Garden Ridge, but it had just been sold to a new group, and we called ourselves at that time kind of a 30-year startup. So we had 58 stores when we started, sitting around 260 now. So we had a pretty big growth spurt, and we had a lot of interesting LP things happen through the time. I guess about 10 and a half years ago, we rebranded to At Home because Garden Ridge was purely a Texas kind of name idea. That's where it started. So the further we got out and the more stores we had, the less people knew what we did. So At Home really makes a lot more sense.
Now, I wasn't in Texas during those days. Was Garden Ridge the same basic setup that you have at Home now?
I think it kind of started that way, but early on it was way more eclectic in terms of product line, merchandise. When I started, they had some things that really didn't make sense to what we are now. Things like they had books and they had luggage and nursing scrubs, just kind of a weird mix of things that were not really related to home furnishings, which is basically we're a big box home furnishing store.
Well, as a matter of fact, let's get into that a little bit. In case our audience has never been in one of your locations, could you kind of describe your business model? It's a unique business model. And look, I know my family loves your stores. It's just so different than anything else out there.
Yeah, but we're kind of think about Home Depot or Lowe's for home goods, right? And we have huge selections, great values. We have 2 seasons, kind of like everybody else. Well, our Christmas, we have the smaller ones like Halloween and fall and that kind of thing. But, you have the Christmas side, you have the patio side, and we have lots of great items kind of across that whole board for home furnishings. I always joke with my wife, like, we have to go find a red pillow, which one of the 10 different red pillows do we want to buy?
And I love how you have it arranged by aisle. You've got the blue pillows on this aisle, the green pillows on that aisle.
Yeah. So it's a little different than I don't think anybody else is really like us in terms of what we do.
So, okay. So you don't have a large team. I know that, but you've got a very efficient team. You got a really solid team, and they're now in charge of all things shrink mitigation, or are you kind of taking this total retail loss approach or some hybrid?
So, it's more hybrid is probably a good word because we have a responsibility for some very specific things that are kind of outside the purview of most LP teams probably. Like, we manage physical inventory.
The process?
The process.
Really?
So my field team, my whopping field team of 3 now, spends about probably 35% of their time on PI.
Wow.
Because the way we do it, we basically take a quarter of our stores and count them in each quarter over 3-week periods. And then we have roughly, let's call them 40 target shrink stores. 30 to 40 target shrink stores. And for each of those, we also try and do a pre-inventory visit to make sure that they're up to snuff. They know their process. We're unique because of our product mix and how large our stores are. The better we can prep, the better our shrink is, because we're really hard to count.
It is I can imagine.
That's not, I mean, I know that's probably a pretty standard comment. The better you prep, the better your count. But we're hard to prep. And if we don't prep, we're hard to count. So we spend a lot of time doing that. And our shrink is probably, even though our incidence has gone up a lot since pre-COVID, we've been able to maintain our shrink at really good levels, different than the industry.
You know, Tony, I want to kind of take a couple of left turns here based on what Rick was just saying. Did you have any questions on some of the topics we brought up to this point, or do you mind if I take that turn?
I'm just curious. Hey, you mentioned obviously the risk. You had risk when you got there, and obviously again you mentioned that you have a small team. That's the first one I know of, at least, that LP is actually handling the inventory process. I've seen it sometimes in like the distribution environment where like LP was like it's like an inventory control team that might fall under the LP department in a warehouse environment. But I hadn't heard of that.
So if you think about how small my team is, we're a growth company starting 12 years ago with about 60 stores, grown to 260. Well, everybody's team is kind of that way. So some of this is divide and conquer. So since shrink was mine, the primary process to get to shrink became mine. So talking about that, the other parts of our team, as you guys know, based on our partnership, does a lot of internal investigations, a lot of external investigations, more geared toward ORC, what we call ORC, probably a little different than the definition that the industry uses, because I've joked with others in the industry saying you can't define it that way, because my ORC team, her name is Joy.
She's good.
She does it, basically does it in reverse of how everybody else does it, right? We do it.
Can you give me an example?
We use exception reporting to do our investigations forensically through the register. So we identify you in ThinkRP and our partners that are our exception reporting. So we identify you by your ID of some sort, right? Well, or at least the ID you're using, or your debit card, or your perks or your loyalty ID, anything that we can to identify. Well, Homeland Security loves us because, everybody else has red Mustang with license plate number starting in 32 with a right arm tattoo. And
and not much else.
I know that person and their bank account is this.
Yeah.
We can help others tie a lot of investigations together, but we learn because of some of that information and how we gather it. We picked out one of our biggest problem groups is actually a group of traveling nurses. So we thought they were traveling for us. No, they were traveling for their real job, and we just happened to be there too. So just
kind of stuff they grab it.
Before we replaced our POS, we had a vulnerability that allowed them to kind of cash out. I don't bore you with the details, but they could basically do multiple transactions to get to a full refund.
I would imagine, Rick, the size of your stores, right? It's almost like you're like a warehouse almost, right? I mean, they're pretty big, right? So I can assume that would make sense that obviously safety would be a huge focus, right? And then when you said ORC, is it mostly like, would you call it fraud related ORC because it's
no? I would call it refund fraud related. If you think of a typical external refund fraud, they're essentially buying it and refunding it. I mean, now they have to manipulate. They have to do more than 2 transactions, but essentially that's what they're doing. And we kind of created them looking for a vulnerability because they used to, they'd buy it, they'd get a gift card, then they'd sell the gift card for 60 cents on the dollar. But we were really proactive, and all these gift card sites would pop up because we were small enough. We would, if there was a gift card out there that ended in 0, that was truly a gift card, we wouldn't pay attention to it. But if it were, if it looked like it was more likely a merchandise credit, we would scrub those sites and pull up data and we turn them off. And then we'd call the site and say, hey, just so you know, if you take any of our gift cards and put them on here, we turn them off. And we were able to stay off of most of those sites. I don't even know if there's any real proliferation of those sites currently, but
I would hope not.
About 10 years ago, there were a lot of them.
Yeah.
And they'd pop up every couple days. And we used to just write them a letter, and I'd call them and say, just so you know, we turn off gift cards. So they'd stop posting ours for sale, which was all we needed. That's all we wanted anyway. But yeah, our vulnerability is thankfully no longer there, but they had to kind of manipulate multiple transactions too. But if you're looking at it from our normal, just the normal LP thing, they were stealing it and returning it and then cashing out. That's that.
If you don't mind, Rick, I want to go back to the physical inventory thing, and let me explain why. Sure. I'm hearing, especially heavily over the past year or so, that a lot of organizations are moving toward internal in-house counting of physical inventory.
Yeah,
when I was coming up, that was a sin, right? Because there was a conflict of interest. We weren't really the experts like Regis and Wiss were. So it was almost sacrilege to even hint that you would have your own people count physical inventory. Now, that being said, I've noticed at the conferences, we've had a lot of push for internal, but I thought that was just coming from the companies that sell the equipment to do that.
No,
but as I'm learning, that's not the case.
There's a lot of efficiencies. If you have enough people for the size of your operation.
Now, do your people run it, or do they actually get out there and they're scanning too?
So mine don't do it. We've tested it a few times. There's things we do that we count, pre-counts and things of that nature. Now, I think where it has evolved from is people were doing cycle counts. And so if I can count it all over 12 months, why can't I count it all one day?
I'm doing it all year. Yeah.
So I think a lot of the, from back when you were coming up and you're thinking about the conflict of interest and everything, it was because most of that count back then was paper driven. There was a lot more opportunity to easily manipulate it if you wanted to. Because now you're scanning everything, it's somewhat, unless you just don't count it, there's really not a way to manipulate it.
Hey, Johnny, can we dive into, I'm fascinated, Rick, by your background. Obviously, everybody that goes in LP, right? There's different reasons, but a lot of folks, right? Like Johnny and I have had this conversation kind of, he intentionally went into LP because he even knew what it was, right? Because of his unique situation. I had no idea. Right. And some kid in my biology class at college is like, I need a part-time job. And then I fell into it. And yours is a little bit unique, right? I haven't seen, the financial aspects of it. It's just really interesting to me. And so I'm just curious as to how you ended up in this LP world, if you will, right? Like how did you get here based on your background?
Well, I think I got in like everybody else. I was going to school. I was working in a department store on the receiving dock, processing store-to-store transfers. That was my job. And I worked whenever I got off of school till about 4 o'clock, Monday through Friday. So it was 3 or 4 hours a day. I met the store detective, and he told me the emergency code. And, then I was still as tall as I am, but all the stuff was in the right places, There was a lot less of it. So one day I heard the emergency page, and I went out there, and he was trying to handcuff a shoplifter, and it wasn't going well, and I jumped in and helped him, and happened a couple times later on. No big deal. One day I heard another page, and I went out there, and the manager of the department was in this struggle, and it was really not going well. And I jumped in, and I had never met her before, and handcuffed the guy and dragged him in, and she was pretty banged up, and she asked me if I wanted a job. And I said, well, I only work Monday through Friday for like 4. So just to date myself, she goes, well, it's $5 an hour. I'm like, all right, I'm in.
Nice.
Because I was making $3.50 an hour. So, and then unfortunately or fortunately, back then, the primary criteria of what was then called a security person, right? You weren't even an LP person or a AP person, was to catch shoplifters. And it was all about body count. Recovery didn't count.
Average hours per week.
Yeah. So I did really well at that. And then they promoted me and I became a manager. And I did that for a number of years before jumping off for a little while into the financial services world.
I asked Chris Hamlin this the other day. Would you stop a shoplifter today? And I'm not just talking about age, just in general. If you were still a young whippersnapper, would you do it?
Probably. If I was young, probably.
Yeah. Nice.
There's a fine line between young and old, though, when you're doing that, because I did have an incident when I was at the advanced age of about 28 and not 21, when I stopped someone and it didn't go particularly well, when it used to always go my way.
Oh, well, come on. You got to share the story.
I stopped a
As
guy.
changing as you can.
I stopped a guy that stole a leather coat, but he stole it and walked outside in the middle of the Christmas parade with the fire engines going off and around the mall with the fire engines. And so it was just so loud, no one could hear me. So he and I got into it, and I held him for a really long time before they figured out where I was, and they came and jumped on him. But
Chaos.
I lost that one.
Yeah. Well, we lose some.
I was
Nowadays,
I was a contender.
I think nowadays, obviously, there's certainly, and we all see it, right?
Yeah.
The violence and stuff that's involved, right? And some of the
Yeah.
activity.
Well, I think the big thing back then is you never really had a fight. You had a wrestling match of you trying not to let them run away. It wasn't like you were standing there toe to toe or anything. It was you just were not letting go. Today, that's not it. I mean, it's real violence today. I mean, they want you to stop them so that they can turn around and do something to you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's exactly the way I describe it to people. Back then, it was just them trying to get away and us trying to make them not get away.
Yeah, it was not a fight, if you will.
There's the liability issues too, right? I mean, nowadays,
Oh yeah, yeah.
completely different than what it was back when we were doing that type of stuff. It's just a different world now.
Mhm.
And there's the violence, but then there's also the liability.
Yeah, liability.
that-
Liability is huge.
I'm curious what your learnings from loss prevention, how that transferred into. It looks like you were ran your own insurance agency for a few years, had some success there, and then became a financial analyst.
No, I was a managed financial analyst.
Okay.
So how my probably the biggest thing in terms of owning the agency that my loss prevention background gave me obviously was the ability to show them risk, and worst case scenario, I had real world experience at that. But probably the biggest tool I had was my interviewing skills, thanks to Dave and Doug. I did ask David Thompson the other day if my trainers were D and Z, do I need to be retrained? He just goes, yeah, you probably missed 4 versions or 5 or 6. So, but no, if you think about doing investigations, and I know you guys have done them, and you think about the interviews around them, whether or not it's the suspect or the witness, you're essentially trying to get somebody to tell you something they don't want to tell you, right? Or tell you everything about that something that they might not want to tell you everything. And was kind of, I found the same way with when I was helping people with their insurances. They might want to leave details out that would have changed, good or bad, the ability to help them, right? So that was probably the one real thing. Managing financial advisors, nothing could help me.
Okay, so what about the other way around then? So you come out of that
Response,
business, you come out of all of those financial businesses, and now you're back in loss prevention, and now you're in significant leadership roles at this point, right?
Yeah, I think
learnings that were transferable.
Definitely. Yeah, I think the big thing, especially coming to a growth company, is when you run your own business. A lot of people think, oh boy, he owns a business. He must be doing really well. Like, so when you're in a business, the last person to get paid is you. So what was really helpful especially in At Home, and lesser so at Party City, but at Home, was really that, okay, if this was my money, would I spend it? And I would say I made fewer mistakes in spending or technology or that kind of thing because I used that theory in making my decisions as we were moving forward. So it was always about the best price or the best service or value, or like when we converted all our alarms over, I told our alarm company that essentially you have to be my alarm department. There's nobody else. I need you to do all this stuff. And they did.
So I see that you went, as you're working your way back into the retail industry, you spent a little time consulting with APA.
Yeah.
I remember APA. I'm wondering if a lot of the audience might not. Do you mind kind of just, because there's a lot of big names that you guys, I mean, there's a lot of you folks that are in senior positions now that came out of that organization.
So I did it, for about a year. And it was really just, I'm trying to think of the best way to explain it. It was if you were running, so I'll go back to when I first started at home and I didn't have a staff. I had two things going on at once on opposite ends of the country. Well, I could do one and there was nobody else. So I actually used APA or someone similar to say, okay, I need these 5 interviews done. So if you really think about it, it's really it was geared toward either folks that didn't have their own LP department or didn't have a certain expertise or didn't have an investigator that could handle kind of the entire start to finish without supervision, essentially, right? I mean, could you do it on your own?
Yeah. All right, so you end up at Party City. Party
Right.
City, RIP to Party City, by the way. And I remember you getting this role. I remember when you took this role over. What'd you think of that environment? Because a lot of people don't realize Party City had franchises. I mean, there were corporate stores, but there were a lot of franchises. It doesn't seem like a normal franchise operation.
I want to say then we had probably, I don't know, 500 to 700 corporate stores and a couple hundred-ish franchises. I didn't have a ton to do with the franchises other than be their SME if they needed something. But I was it. I had an analyst and me.
Well, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, when I was there. They had eliminated kind of the department and then they were bringing it back. So I think my the two things there that were unique that I was able to accomplish and help me kind of look at how to build a department is that one of my partners there was the predecessor to Integris, LPI, Loss Prevention Innovators.
Yep,
Yeah.
Yep, David Johnston and team.
Yeah, and they did audits in the stores for us, and then if I needed an investigation, they could do that if it needed to be remote. One of the unique things I asked them to give me was I had a ton of this kind of low-hanging fruit investigation off exception reporting. Like you could just look at it and know what was going on. And I asked them to find me an investigator that would sit next to me in my office and I would just funnel him exception reports and he would do phone interviews. And he'd probably take out 3 or 4 people a week that were doing serious amounts of fraud and never left the desk.
That's a good pace.
And it really informed how I built my team, being that it was small. I mean, we were doing phone interviews well before COVID. We were doing phone interviews were our norm.
Now, you're obviously working now in an environment where you still don't have a huge team and you've got a large responsibility with multiple avenues and multiple verticals. What would Rick 2025 tell Rick 2011 at Party City? Any advice that you've gleaned from the decade plus after that?
I think I'd have a much better idea how to build how to justify building a team there than I did then. Especially having been out for about 10 years. When I got the Party City gig, I had been out of retail for about 10 years. So there were a lot of things that were different, like exception reporting. When I left, exception reporting was barely on the radar.
Yep.
So having that kind of changed my thought process, but probably not fast enough. Because I would have, knowing what I know today, I would have said to them, we have this exception reporting that is 10 versions old. I'm making that up. I don't know if that's true. Yeah. I don't remember if it was actually 10, but if we need to spend the money to update this, to get it to the current level, to get it, or to see what else is out there that might be more intuitive or something that we could generate more activity quicker, because the biggest problem, I think the only thing I really look at today on cases is dollar value. Because to me, if you have more cases or less cases, it's not as material as what that dollar value is. If you have fewer cases than last year, but your dollar value tripled, you're missing something. If you have fewer cases than last year, but your dollar value got cut in half, you're probably doing the right thing, or at least as much as you can. So I really think the knowing what I know, because when I got to at home, I had to put in exception reporting. I had to put in case management. I had to put in now different type technologies that we use that were already in place at Party City, but I didn't know they were deficient.
Yeah.
In terms of their, it was better than anything I ever had. I didn't know it could be better than that. Yeah. So that's probably the biggest thing. And that's why we don't always change, and actually we rarely change, but we always listen. It's like, okay, you think you have the, I don't know, I'll use you guys as an example. So one of your competitors thinks they have the new best thing. All right, come show us the new best thing. Okay, does it do this? No. Okay, well, it's not the new best thing then. The old thing's still better.
Rick, there wasn't an all-in-one solution back then. Everybody was a point solution. There was groups that were good at EBR. There were groups that were good at case management. Nobody was doing all of it. And that's what we're finding. We're finding that a lot of people are stunned when we say we're moving into that realm.
Well, I think the big thing is it's where your pain point and your efficiency, right? So I knew when I started I needed exception reporting, because that, with me and one person not having exception reporting, we had no chance, right? Yeah. But I could go a long time with my case management system being a spreadsheet when there's only 2 people generating cases, right? But when I got to the point that was no longer efficient, or you were spending too much time compiling and reporting, then we find you guys, right? And then we bring you on. And then what we've learned is stop worrying about it just for LP. Where does your solution make everybody efficient? And we've been able to use it like a enterprise business tool in that anybody that was tabulating data of any sort manually, we've taken on building them a intake form of some sort, and I'm going to call it the wrong thing. You guys know what it is. Whether it's a case or a form or a report or whatever it is in the nomenclature of what the actual thing is that we're using.
It's whatever you call it, Rick.
Well, no, you guys have different, but you have I know we use some things it's actually a case that we're using, and some things it's actually a form, just a form that we're using. But it helps our partners in the organization not have to do something manually. And that's probably the biggest thing, is just the fact that it will automate so much and report out on it, that why are we keeping it in the bucket of LP? Because certainly we probably learned this most during COVID, when you didn't have a choice. Everything had to do something else, because we had to do contact tracing. I was going to call IT and say, find me a company that does contact tracing software. Oh, it was options out there, right? I mean, they were all there. Even if there was one, how much were we going to pay for it? How long was it going to take? I needed it next week. Yeah. So we've built something in Think LP. And the joke, and I know Tony's heard it, and Johnny, I don't know if I've used the phrase, but what I told Jen was, all right, here's our new goal with Think LP. Every week we have to try and break it. And what can we build that it won't do? To your credit or her credit, or the combination of the support we've received and what she's learned, is that, I mean, we've bruised it a couple times, but I don't think we've broken it.
That's good to hear.
Fair enough, Rick. Hey, Rick, I wanted to switch gears a little bit with some stuff that this is my favorite part, if I'm being honest. My favorite part of this podcast here is, obviously people know you, right? They know you from the industry, but we're more interested in some of the things they don't know about Rick, right? Okay. So we're going to dive into some guilty pleasures for Rick.
Okay.
So what keeps you occupied when you're not in LP mode, which I know is hard to turn off, as we all know, because we've been in this industry a long time, but when you're not in LP mode. And so the first question I have is, what is your favorite guilty pleasure song?
One song?
Yes.
Yeah, or genre.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go with one song as Thunder Road by Bruce Springsteen. That's the one.
Good song.
See, that's a real song.
So, however, what I will kind of outline is I've become, I'm still, I'm going to call it music snobby. Essentially, any artist that started after 1980 probably isn't very good. My favorite movie is Field of Dreams.
Classic.
Yeah,
Classic.
Yeah.
classic. Good movie. Okay.
It's got
Yeah.
All right.
the Red Sox. It's got baseball, specifically the Red Sox. It's got some supernatural thing. It's got an investigation for us weirdos that do that.
Yep. And it's got Darth Vader.
Yeah, yeah. So it was.
What about so guilty pleasures or hobby activity, and we do have to share, and we did the same thing. You know, Rhett's gonna kill us, by the way, Johnny. We keep bringing
I
this
know.
up.
I intentionally tried not to
But
bring him up.
Rhett's guilty pleasure hobby, Rhett Asher, is antiquing. Rick, would you have guessed that? I mean, I literally he said that, and I was like, I almost fell on my chair. That
Would I? I don't think I would have guessed that.
antiquing. So
No.
so what is
I
your
would have gone
favorite?
with bowling for him if I was going to make one up.
So what is your favorite?
Mine is for about the last 8 or 9 years has been golf, and it's getting worse.
You're getting worse, or
Wait,
the,
wait,
the
wait,
addiction's
wait.
getting worse?
The addiction is getting worse depending on the time. I actually almost wore that shirt, Tony. I'm glad I didn't.
Woodward birds, like LPF. And you don't even really golf, Rick. So I can't go all at golf, but I go out there and swing that club around and had a good time. So it's fun.
The yeah, right now I feel like I'm a little bit worse, Johnny, but the addiction's gotten worse. Now I'm into more. It's just bad. But I could have worse hobbies.
Fair
You
enough.
play here
Fair
locally
enough.
on our
This is not-
esteemed Lantana course?
I do not. I'm a little out of my.
Not cheap.
I cannot justify. I played there a couple of weeks ago as a guest of one of the members. I could justify it if I was retired, but I can't justify what that, because I play all the time and I don't sniff that number.
The last question, I'm gonna leave it to you, Johnny. Even though it's my favorite, you go ahead. My favorite question. Go ahead, shoot.
Yeah, so your previous questions were a little too normal for us, so we got to throw this one out there. Everybody has, and you kind of touched on a good story with the parade, but what's a good embarrassing story that you went through in your loss prevention career, whether it was an apprehension or an internal, anything?
Embarrassing, so not like a total mess up, but an embarrassing thing that happened. Okay. I can still literally cry from laughing telling this story, so I'll try not to. I was on a plane one day. This is at home, and I'm texting something with my boss about whatever problem was going on. And I'm texting with my wife, and I'm texting with my boss, and blah, blah, blah. And then I finally say, okay, on the plane, love you. And text it. And my boss texts me back and says,
Love you too.
Love you too, but I'm sure you meant this for somebody else. And now, literally, I text him back. I said, yes, but now the person sitting next to me thinks I'm having a seizure because I'm laughing so hard.
Oh my goodness. Does he still tell you he loves you just as a joke? Did he bring it up ever?
No, we had another funny story that I won't share, but that he'll bring up. But it wasn't related to embarrassment or anything else.
Well,
I'll tell you that
over a beer, Rick.
Yeah, I'll tell you that one off the air.
Listen.
Yeah, that's probably the most embarrassing one because I don't remember now if I was more embarrassed from the text that I sent him or the poor person next to me that couldn't figure out what I have lost my mind over.
I love it. I love it. Hysterical. Listen, Rick, I want to thank you for being a good sport. You've been great. Keep doing what you're doing for our industry. You know, and we didn't really get into it because we didn't have a lot of time. But, you know, for those of you that don't know, Rick is not only the senior director at Home. Rick is doing things across the industry to help influence the changes and the progress and the evolution of our thought process, whether that be through the Loss Prevention Research Council, whether it be through Loss Prevention Magazine. Rick, are you advising anywhere else? It seems like you're advising everywhere.
I'm on RILA board of advisors for their for the AP conference, and on their AP leaders group, whatever that's called. That sounds about right. And then I also do something that I've been doing since COVID with Access Communications on their retail advisory board, and we have a small. I won't call it a conference, more of a meeting, educational meeting that we had actually just this week. And they've been doing that, I want to probably say 12 years. I haven't been involved that long, but I've been involved on the board since COVID. And it's just, I think the content in that, not to say that the other content is more general. This is kind of really specific and different and interesting because it's much smaller and it's more intimate. I find it the most interesting. I'm a little biased because I'm kind of advising / creating all of it versus just commenting on all of it. So maybe it's not, but the people that come always give rave reviews to the content, and that's kind of what is important to me. And if we can help other people and people grow, that's the industry is so different. I mean, if you talk about your job was catching shoplifters and now you're, tracking hurricanes. I mean, it's just so different, and you really need to be more of a well-rounded business person that has a subject matter expertise and probably all the things that we do that no one else wants to think about.
That's a great clip
Fair
right
enough,
there.
Rick. Fair enough.
With that, Rick,
Hey,
let's end it there.
John, I want to thank you again, Rick. I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Point, especially on a Friday afternoons. Hopefully we all make happy hour still. So we got to wrap up now. Again, always a pleasure. Good to see you as always, and I'll see you on the circuit. I know we belong in some of the same groups, so I'm sure I'll see you soon. But again, really appreciate your time.
Coming to a team screen near you.
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
Rick, thank you again. Appreciate it. Tony, good to see you, buddy. We'll see you on the next one.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Take
Have
care,
a good
everybody.
weekend.
Thanks for listening to It's Your Loss, where we explore the strategies, stories, and data driving the future of loss prevention. This podcast is brought to you by ThinkLP, powering loss prevention for over 200 leading retailers and helping protect people and profits around the world. If you got value from today's episode, make sure to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube so you never miss an update. Let's keep the conversation going. Follow Tony Shepard and Johnny Custer on LinkedIn for more insights, stories from the field, and industry updates between episodes. We'll be back soon with more news, more strategy, and yes, probably another crazy loss prevention story or two. Until then, keep protecting people, securing profits, and try not to let it be your loss.